You didn't think I forgot about Shore, did you? In the last video about McCreary's score for The Rings of Power, I mentioned that Howard Shore did the music for the opening credits. Now that we've seen those credits, we can give this track the attention it deserves. But since the track dropped, I've seen a surprisingly sour reaction to it. People call it uninspired, disappointing, or underwhelming. Now let's be clear. No matter what you think about the show itself, there are many valid reasons to be conflicted about the scoring situation. For many of us, Howard Shore's score for the Lord of the Rings trilogy is such an integral part of Middle-earth, it's only natural that many wanted Shore to return to score The Rings of Power. Personally, it's never been a deal-breaker for me. If Amazon doesn't want Shore, if they want to go a whole different route with the music, for copyright reasons or whatnot, I'm totally fine with that. The Peter Jackson movies aren't the Lord of the Rings adaptation, they're an adaptation. It's okay to want to do your own thing. But now, it's kinda neither. Why go through the trouble of getting Howard Shore to do the opening credits if he can't use his old themes? Or barring that, why not let him collaborate with Baird to make a title track that has continuity with his score? I'm not sure how I feel about any of this. I mean, if we're being honest, did any of us even expect the title track of a show to be integrated into the score of that series before Game of Thrones? Is this even a big deal? But never mind all that, I'm not here for drama or debates. No, this is a video for analyzing Howard Shore's title track and to determine if it's as disappointing as people say it is. Let's listen and see what we can learn. So first off, yes, if you're at all familiar with the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, you will find plenty of nods to it. This arpeggio, for example, is very similar to the Rivendell arpeggios. This central falling phrase has almost the exact same pitches as the Death and Parting theme from The Hobbit. Also this whole bit is very similar to this moment from The Hobbit, which is still one of my favorites. This whole section is very similar to some Ring themes. It has this half-step adjacent minor chords, and it's also very similar to this Seduction of a Ring moment from The Two Towers. We can definitely hear some Elvish lyrics from the text Namarie, which Shore also used for the gift-giving scene in the Fellowship of the Ring, and of course some black speech to give that evil feeling. But are these intentional? The thing is, you can make these sort of parallels to the leitmotifs of The Lord of the Rings in almost all of Howard Shore's orchestral scores. In truth, I think this is the wrong way to approach this. I don't think Shore is trying to sneak in as many hints to his old themes as possible. Rather, I think that Howard Shore knows exactly how to write music to make us think of Lord of the Rings. So first off, we got this. These are open fifths. They're like a chord, except there's no third. And Shore uses these all the time. He's got like the Moria theme, which is only open fifths. Or lots of Rohan music, like the Eowyn theme. Then let's take a look at this arpeggio. As I mentioned, it's very similar to the Rivendell arpeggio, but it's not just about the pitches, it's also about the rhythmic pattern. Now, arpeggios are often an underscore to a melody, and melodies tend to start on the first beat, so it's very common for arpeggios to leave out that first beat instead of forgot. So it's not just that these two have the same pitches, they also have the same rhythmic pattern. And next up we have scales. Howard Shore loves scales. Ever since the beginning of the Two Towers, the Lord of the Rings scores are full of just rising scales. One might even argue that this is the origin of all the stepwise motifs that we found in Lord of the Rings, like the Shire theme and the Fellowship theme and Seduction theme and the Threat of Mordor. So we get these rising scales. And then a repeat of the first theme, which we might call the verse of a song, because the whole song is kind of structured like a verse, chorus, development, and then verse and chorus again. This second rising scale leads directly into the chorus of a song. Notice how the next part is a development of this idea. We begin from a third of an F major chord going down, but now we shift it to the third of an F sharp minor chord going down. And again in G minor. Then we get the dissonant neighbor of the rising scale, the rising cluster. So we have but then we find some clarity and purity again by going to the E flat major, and just like the root to mediant progression we had before in F, now we have that same progression in E flat. The use of boy choir here is no coincidence either. Shore uses boys choirs to convey purity and innocence, as can be heard genuinely in the Nature's Reclamation theme and more deceptively in the Seduction of the Ring theme. And we change this G minor to a G major to bring us a really strong resolution back to C, but this time it's in C minor. This progression, the C minor to E minor, are also what we know as the Mount Doom chords, which is both used as harmony for the Pity of Gollum theme and also for the entire climax of the story in Mount Doom. But it's also worth mentioning how Howard Shore treats the brass. Shore often used the entire brass section no matter what culture he was representing, but the way he used it is important. Themes relating to mankind, like the Gondor theme and the Rohan theme, often emphasized high and clear horns and trumpets, while themes associated with evil, like the Isengard theme, the Mordor theme, are deep and guttural. And we see the same thing here, this minor monad variation of the arpeggios. Use that deep, guttural crunch in brass. And now also we have mixed choir joining in the fray, which is probably the most interesting in how Howard Shore and Bear McCreary treats evil, because Bear McCreary composed the soundtrack with deep male vocals, you know, that But Shore never used the deep male voices to represent evil. He instead used mixed choirs, for example for the ring wraiths. And then finally, after this evil interlude, finally we get a reprieve, an ounce of hope by returning to a secondary theme, the chorus. But instead of going back up here to that first A, we stay here on the lower A, so that it feels like it descends even more than it used to. And finally we get it one last time of string harmonics. Now, as you can see, this tune is the perfect distillation of Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings sounds. It's less Lord of the Rings themes and more Lord of the Rings vibes. However, the main reason I think people find this track disappointing is because they think it's too simple. I mean, look at this main motif. It's practically just a falling minor scale. Nothing creative about that, right? If you think this, fine, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that you're wrong. It is a simple motif. But consider this. Do themes have to be complex to be good? Can, for example, a falling G major scale be good? I'm sure you've heard of the Nutcracker by Tchaikovsky, even if you never sat down and listened to it. This is the pas de deux, the romantic climax of a whole ballet, and it's represented with a single, ordinary G major scale. For all the complexity contained within this ballet, this moment required a simple theme. Or how about an example from Shore himself? This is also little more than a scale, and it ranks very high among people's favorite musical moments in the whole trilogy. And this will probably sound quite odd coming from someone who's dedicated as much time analyzing it as I have, but the Lord of the Rings score is simple. Compared with John Williams, Shore's themes are kind of underdeveloped. They're usually made of similar stepwise motifs, overwhelmingly diatonic, and mostly consist only of an A phrase. The score is mostly in 4/4 and 3/4, and even when he uses a more unusual time signature, he picks like the most basic one. There's barely any syncopation or counterpoint, and don't get me started on the harmony. Shore uses the most basic chord progressions over and over no matter what culture he represents. People like Frank Lehman, Brad Frey or Dominic can spend hours picking apart the harmonic structure of a single John Williams cue, while I'd spend hours trying to find even 1/7 chord. But before you stab me in the mistake, I ask you to let me finish my point, which is that all of this is intentional.
I remember when I first sent that song to Howard Shore, I was shitting it. You know, that he would just say, this is awful.
That is rubbish.
And he wrote back and said he loved it. He says, but there's no minor seventh chords in Lord of the Rings.
Billy,
minor
that's
seven.
awful. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yes.
Consider this quote from the man himself. I'm writing the music based on a story that predates our culture. I want it to feel old. I want to create a very specific sound for this story. I want it to feel like somebody discovered the score for Lord of the Rings in a vault somewhere. To get that ancient sound, Shore had to ditch many of the modern techniques that we're more familiar with. He didn't attempt to break new ground, he was looking backwards to Celtic folk music, Middle Eastern modes, Gregorian chants. He took inspiration from German and Italian opera. Of course, I'm not saying that the Lord of the Rings score was easy to make or that anyone could have made it. There's nothing amateurish about it. But Shore knows when to go complicated and when to go simple for the desired effect. His themes are so malleable and easily interwoven because they reuse a lot of the same contours and intervals. The individual simplicity was allows for a complex whole. Simple is why you cry at moments like these. And that, I'd argue, is exactly why Shore made this track the way he did. Going by this article by the people who made the visuals of opening credits, showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, along with executive producer Lindsay Weber, challenged us to create an opening sequence that was simple, stark, and beyond anything we could have thought of. We set out to portray a universe both primordial and timeless. Taking inspiration from J.R.R. Tolkien's Ainur, immortal angelic beings that sing such beautiful music that the world is created from the very sound, we conceived of a main title sequence built from the world of sound. The sequence conjures an ancient and invisible power struggling to be seen. Symbols form, flow, push and disappear as quickly as they came. The unknowable realms of sound create fleeting visions of conflict and harmony that move in lockstep with Howard Shore's opening title score. No matter if you like the opening credits or not, to me it's undeniable that Shore made the perfect music for it. Shore's not here to steal the show from Bear McCreary. The work of Shore and the Bear can and should be appreciated for what they bring individually to the table. So is it underwhelming? I don't think so. Thanks for watching, everybody. I finally got a mic, so hopefully this will be the first video that doesn't sound like complete crap. If you want to support my channel, I suggest heading over to Ko-fi, and if I get enough money I will buy a better camera than my phone. If you're interested in more Rings of Power content, I suggest following me on Twitter, where I posted most of my analyses. But if there's an interest for more videos as well, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, stay tuned for my next video, where I finally talk about something else than the Lord of the Rings.